Hello and welcome back to the Art of SBA Lending. Today in the podcast, we have the GOAT, Bruce Marks, joining us. He is a top producing BDO and has been for many years. Great speaker. He's with First Bank of the Lake. I'm actually going to be moderating Bruce on a panel at the Flagle Conference in a couple weeks in Orlando. Him along with Alejandro, who is going to be a guest of ours in a couple of weeks, and of course, Alan Peterson. So if you're going to Flagle, that's definitely a session you're not going to want to miss. But back to Bruce, we got into a lot of topics about being a top producer, niching down, something we've been talking about on the podcast for years now. And I mean, to have Bruce and myself sitting there, as two very big producers and listening to what we're saying, here's what we did to get there. I mean, this is invaluable information. I hope you enjoy this interview with Bruce Marks. Bruce, thanks for joining me today here in our podcast studios.
Yeah,
HQ.
my pleasure. Yeah, nice studio, by the way. Congrats.
So listen, I met you, what's it been, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, probably, something like that. You were at Radius Bank.
Right.
You were doing, I remember I cornered you at a SBA event, and you'd become a mega producer in the industry. You're probably doing like 50 million or something annual productions. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, consistent, yeah.
Was it always like that for you, or was there like a tipping point where things kind of changed?
Yeah, so I love telling the story, so I'll tell it.
Perfect.
Flagle, which obviously you're very heavily involved in. So back in 2014, I had attended a Flagle event in September of 2014. And Joanne Jolin, who I'm sure you know, and Kevin and Beth and all those very active members in Flagle had put this together, and they had a guest speaker. His name was Nick Nanton, Nanton. And Nick had written a book called Celebrity Branding You. And Nick gets up there, and it's Friday afternoon. It's 2:00. They're like, "Hey, if you stay, we'll give you $100 chance to win." You know what I mean? To get the audience to stay. And there's a lot of people that did stay. BDOs, closers, everybody there that was there for Flagle. And Nick gets up and he opens up his presentation, and he shows this film, and it's him with, all these kinds of celebrities. And so he's promoting both his book and the thought concept of, if you're a celebrity, people will want to do business with you.
Interesting.
So he shared this story, which I'll share for the audience because it's very relative, is he had taken this woman who was a personal trainer, and he starts off talking about, how many personal trainers in Orlando are there, because Nick lives in the Orlando area. And, people are guessing, thousands of personal trainers in the Orlando area. And he went on to explain that this was one woman had taken the concept of training mothers who had just had children, and they have the little mummy tummy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's talking about how he worked with this woman, and they, quote unquote, branded this concept of mothers who have had children getting rid of their mummy tummy. And then what happened to her business and how she scaled it and grew it and became really popular and just grew her business organically, but grew it tremendously.
By carving out a niche.
By carving out the niche. And so, he went on, he did a great presentation. Like anything, some people thought it was great. Some people didn't think it was so great, like anything else. But it just really resonated with me. I had been in the SBA lending business at that point for 20-something years, doing fine, but, not breaking any records, just a general SBA lender, to be truthful with you, like a lot of the BDOs are out there. But I saw this as a really tremendous opportunity. So I left the conference, and on that Sunday, I decided I'd write him an email. And the story still sends shivers up my own spine. So I sent him an email, and I said, "Hey, Nick, I thought your speech was tremendous. It added a tremendous amount of value to me. Got the book and started reading it. And I just want to let you know that this is something I think that's going to change me. And it did. And so I wrote him the nice email. About a half an hour later, Ray, the phone rings, and I pick up the phone. I go, "Hello, this is Bruce." And he says, "Yeah, Bruce, this is Nick." And I'm thinking, Nick who? And he says, "This is Nick Nanton." He said, "You just sent me an email. I want to let you know how much I appreciate it. And it's nice to know that you inspire people and that you have an effect on people when you're up there and you don't know who your audience is per se individually." He said, "So tell me what it is that you do." And I said, "I'm an SBA lender." And the next thing I hear is click and a busy signal.
You're kidding.
I'm not. He hung up on me. It's a true story. I'm like, what?
So what were you thinking at that point?
I didn't know what to think. So I pick up the phone. Obviously, I hit redial and I call him. And it goes just like this. "Hello? Nick? Yes? This is Bruce." "Bruce who?" I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I said, "This is Bruce Marks. We were just on the phone. Maybe we got disconnected." He goes, "No, we didn't get disconnected." I said, "We didn't?" He goes, "No, I hung up on you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Remind me again what it is that you do." And I just thought for a minute. And I said, "Well, if I say the same answer, probably I'm going to get the same response." So I said, "I don't know." And he says, "Good, we can start."
Wow. What a wise guy.
Just super meaningful. And he said to me, "Bruce, if you're in a room of 250 SBA lenders, half of them being BDOs, why is somebody going to choose you?
Sure.
And if you don't know how you separate yourself from the rest of the pack, how is a borrower?" And from that moment on, I bought in totally into his teachings and his methods and how to separate yourself from the pack, so to speak, and make yourself a celebrity so that people will want to do business with you, and how you can separate yourself from the rest of the pack. And in that first year, I went from doing 10 to, $12 million to just under $40 million in my first year working, under his basically guidance, if you will, on what to do, how to do it, how to brand yourself, how to separate yourself, and how to become the person that you want to be in the industry.
Is it all marketing?
It's investing in yourself, right? So, one of his concepts is if you're going to, and I think of it like this: if you go to a doctor or you need a doctor, if you go to a DO or you go to an MD or you go to a specialist, right? So the track,
right?
Who do you think's making the most money, right? The
Yeah,
specialist.
That's right.
So from a DO to an MD to a specialist, the guy that's the specialist is the guy making the most money.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So that's kind of the thought process: is how do you become a specialist and what is it that you do, and then letting the marketplace. So I have a saying, and I've got a lot of them, by the way. Hopefully I can share some of them.
I hope we hear a few.
Yeah,
today.
you will. And this is the first of them. Today you're the best at what it is you do, but tomorrow you'll be even better, right? Because in this business, you know more each and every day that we do it.
That's especially true in our business.
Especially true in this business, right? So, people say, "Oh, I wish I knew then what I know now." Well, you can't, because you don't have the experience.
There's no shortcut there.
Yeah, there's no shortcut.
It's just reps.
Right. It's just reps, right? You got to see deal after deal after deal after deal. And, you look at it and you bring a junior BDO brings a deal to his boss, and his boss starts going down the list. "Did you look at this? Did you look at this? Did you look at?" And I know what he's thinking. Well, how does he know that? Because you just know, right?
Right. You have to know, well, if it's this type of business and you see this, you got to ask that question.
Right.
There's
exactly.
no playbook for this. It's not written down anywhere.
That's right.
Someone should write it down somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe a book in your future?
Yeah. I was going to say maybe one in yours. You have time. I don't.
You can co-write. So a lot of people understand the concept of niching down, but let me ask you, where do you think BDOs fall short when they say, "Yeah, that sounds great," and then the next day they get a deal that's outside their niche, and then what do they do with it? They say, "Well, I can't turn this away, so I'll do it." Right? Were you turning stuff away that fell outside your niche?
Yeah, I absolutely did, and it's tough because you have a goal. But here's another saying: you have to let the marketplace know what it is you do and what you don't do.
I've heard that one before from you.
Yep. So that's a favorite one of mine, and it's one that I've got several guys that report to me, and I get them to buy into the same thing. And it's tough because the power of no sometimes is great.
Yes.
Right? You know that.
That's mine. I've said that one.
Yeah. I think I heard you. So maybe I'm paraphrasing you, right?
Yeah, maybe.
There you go. But it's true, right? So I would, as I started this venture, I went back to school and I became a certified M&A advisor. And then I went and learned through NACFA, how to do business valuations.
So you're doing business acquisitions, lower middle market
only. So I don't do anything else, period. If it's outside the scope, I'll refer it to either one of my team members, or if it's a deal that we can't do, But I'll get a call from other BDOs that will say, Bruce, what do you do with your real estate deals? And I'll say, what real estate deals?
Why would somebody call you?
Right. They're not.
Right.
They're not. I started my SBA lending career way back in 1986. So I've been doing it a long time, right? And I've closed one 504 loan. One. So if you took the average, I don't even think that's a 30-second. I mean, 1 30-second.
Yeah, it's a rounding error.
Yeah, it's a rounding error, right? But I don't do that. And so every time I get a call that's real estate related, I'll pass on it. In fact, if I get a business acquisition request where real estate is a lot more than the acquisition, I'll pass on it as well.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just not going to do it. As I'm not good at it, and I'm going to let somebody else who is do it. Right?
Yeah.
And it's different when you've been in the business for so long and you've created and established a reputation of doing this and doing. And at some point when you've been doing it long enough, you are fortunate enough to get up in the morning to make that choice whether you want to continue to do it or not, right? So it's in a different position when you don't have to get up in the morning and go to work versus wanting to get up in the morning and going to work.
100%.
Right. So
now, when I met you, I was doing mostly real estate, so I was the opposite of you. And I knew one other person that would do these large business acquisitions. A lot of lenders get scared away from them because they don't have collateral. And then I've met some others along the way. Now I'm one of these guys doing business acquisitions.
Right.
Did you have to educate your own shop on it, or were they already doing those types of deals, or what was that like?
Yeah. So, I had gone to this conference. It was in September of 2014. I was working for a very small bank in the Jacksonville area, very, very tiny, very regional bank. But the bank president was really experienced and came out of the PNC corporate world. So he worked for PNC Bank and came out of corporate. And so super smart, but really understood cash flow lending. And he was the one that said, hey, we can go up to $5 million, and I'm not afraid of doing large goodwill acquisition. And in fact, we feel there's a big market that we can, that's being underserved, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, we're comfortable with the business being able to drop 25 to 30%, and you still have no worries about whether the client can service the debt.
Right.
So the larger the deal, the larger the EBITDA, the more sustainable the business model is, the more comfortable we are in lending that. And so it was easy to have that transition to do the larger deals because I didn't have to convince the bank. And then when I got a call from Diane Gallion, who you know really well, who's a tremendous person and a very close friend of mine, and I love her dearly. She was at the Bancorp. And that's when she had convinced me to come and join and said, well, if you're doing it on a regional basis, just think about what you could be doing on a national basis. And that's when it exploded because I could do things now nationally where before I couldn't. It just, when I left for a very specific reason because I now had a greater opportunity to do what I was doing, but obviously nationwide versus just regional. And so it made sense.
You have to make that move at that point to go national.
Yeah.
So do you think other shops have, I feel like so many shops would rather do a gas station with 115 debt service coverage than do a $2 million airball. But your point's well taken, and I agree with it, where our deals are having 1.5, sometimes debt service coverage, sometimes 1.8, sometimes 2, even if it's 1.35, whatever it is, like you have more room for error. So why do so many shops care so much about the collateral aspect and less so on cash flow, which is what repays the loan?
That's right. That's right. And, I think, and this is just my own personal opinion. I mean, real estate is great. It's a fallback position. But as a lender, if I'm looking for a way to get out before I've gotten in, that's a real difficult model to follow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it is. I mean, I never could understand the concept of, hey, how do we get out of this, and have a conversation at loan committee about how you're going to exit before you even get in. It just never resonated with me. And so,
yeah, those loan committees are crazy.
Yeah.
Did you, in your earlier days, I mean, what were you like getting in front of loan committee and like having to pitch your deals, and they were just saying things that were like, why would you even ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, when you get into loan committee, you've got some people that are experienced in real estate, some people that are experienced in business, some people that, maybe might be dentists that are on the board, right? Because you have all different makeup of people who are on the board. Maybe some understand, maybe some don't, right? So you're getting everybody's opinion thrown at you.
Yeah.
And it's a really difficult way to pitch your deal.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because the model is, as we know with BDOs, is you have a number. You do your number, you get to stay. You don't do your number, then, they're showing, it's just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think for people that haven't built up as they're building, it's very difficult because they need those deals because it's how they keep their job, right? So it's very difficult as they're starting out. But, if I was going back knowing what it is that I know now, I would definitely find an area like, you did. You really got really good at real estate. You built a following. You built a reputation. And you've done nothing more than just expand it now, right? So you've gotten into something else that allows you to do what it is you do today.
Right.
Right. But you're still awesome at real estate, and you still do real estate, and you still understand and know real estate. You're not going to abandon that. You're just, expanding it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm limiting myself to real estate partner buyouts and business acquisitions because to me, it's the same customer. They're buying the business. Eventually, they buy out the partner, and eventually, they buy out the building. So that's how I'm thinking. I could live off just the business acquisition.
Right.
There's enough there to go.
Oh, it's a huge market. It's a huge market.
So what do you do? What would you advise like a BDO and committee where like some guy on the committee is like, well, what if an asteroid hits the business tomorrow? Then what? These types of crazy questions. How do you like?
That's why you say, well, that's why we have insurance. Right? Fair. And, what the way I look at it is, obviously like everybody else, you stamping an SBA guarantee on it doesn't make a bad loan good, right?
Right.
So I think understanding and knowing your deal, here's the problem as I see it. With the business acquisitions that I do, low and middle market, you're dealing not with any brokers. You have no intermediaries.
Really?
I like a lot of people pay referral sources. I don't. I can't tell you the last time I just don't work that way, right? So people that reach out to me are buyers who are buying businesses, right? And maybe it comes through a referral from a broker. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I don't pay.
Oh, so there are brokers involved in the transactions.
There's brokers involved in the transactions, but I never get leads from them.
You're getting the buyers.
The buyers are absolutely, because it's like a snowball effect. You do one, then they tell somebody, and if you provide a good service.
Well, you got to do well, right?
Right. You got to do well. So, but when you're working as let's say a junior BDO or a BDO that's just, in his business 2 or 3, 4 years, they deal with a lot of brokers,
yes,
whether it be loan brokers, business brokers, mortgage brokers, right? And everybody's got their hand in. And it's tough to know the deal because the broker's saying, hey, if you want to know something, call me, because they want to control the deal. That's how they get paid, right? They're coming to you and hopefully they're getting a referral fee. I would tell you that I would say between 4 to 6 months is the average transaction that I'm involved before it hits loan committee.
So
it's a long cycle.
Buyers that are not under LOI yet, like looking at businesses?
Well, maybe they were under LOI, but now they're going through their due diligence, and then they're working up the purchase and stock, or maybe it's a stock sale, so they're working up the PSA. But these deals are not $500,000 deals. These are I'm typically now seeing, I would say my average deal right now is probably between 6 and 8 million. That's probably my average
Transaction
deal size.
size.
Transaction size. And so there's a lot of things that go into making sure that they've got all the check marks checked, right? But if you're a broker, if you're a business development officer and you're working with brokers, a lot of times they want to control the deal, and you don't get the opportunity, to go back to your question, you don't get the opportunity to speak with the client a lot and ask those questions, because it's a deal. Well, if you can't deliver, I'm taking it to the next bank. So your window is really, really short, right?
Right.
I mean, so if a BDO gets a deal and hopefully within a couple of weeks, he's in at loan committee, or he's presenting that deal for approval because he's competing with 4 or 5 other lenders.
Right.
Right. And so they really, to answer your question, like how do you get to be able to answer those questions to loan committee? You can't.
And loan committee doesn't care.
Yeah,
A
loan
lot of
committee.
these guys.
Yeah. And you're never going to get there, right? Because the window is so short, you don't have the time to get granular and ask those questions, where I do, right? So
by the time you're going for approval, you know the deal inside and out.
Inside and out. And I don't compete. I will not compete. If a borrower calls me and I say to them, "Are you talking with 2 or 3 other lenders?" They say, "Yeah." I say, "Great. I'll be a great backup plan for you." But I'm not competing. I do not compete with deals. Either they're going to, after speaking with me, they think and they are confident that I can get their deal to the closing table. So I have this is another one of my sayings. This one you're going to like. You haven't heard this one, by the way.
Let me write this down.
Okay. I'm happy to walk down the aisle, but I will not be left at the altar.
All right.
Right.
I may have to take that one.
Wait, you haven't heard that one before, buddy.
No.
Right? So it's the truth. If I'm competing against, and there's several other banks that do large, goodwill transactions, and maybe even you in one of them, right? So I'm happy to pass. There's just so much transactions out there, so many good transactions. I'm having trouble just keeping up with deal flow anyway. So if I get a deal, great. If I don't get a deal, that's okay too.
So there's a lot of people probably thinking like, well, that sounds nice, just don't compete and then also still crush it. So that said, do you find that buyers are typically receptive to that? Is it working for you to say essentially, I'm not going to compete, take her to leave it, and they're just going to talk to other buyers? Are you finding that they will go with somebody who's just like cheaper?
So in these size deals, rate is, the typical questions as a BDO gets. How's your credit? Right? In the normal course of things. What's your rate? I don't get those. Credit's never an issue. I haven't lost a deal in years because somebody doesn't have good credit, right? I'm just not, these size deals, you've got to have money. I would tell you that probably literally 80% of my borrowers either come from Harvard or Wharton, or Stanford or Kellogg.
Wow.
Yeah. So these guys are really bright guys. They've built up a career. They're either coming out of the private equity world or they're coming out of private equity groups, the private equity world. I would tell you they've been in CEOs type of, we just got a deal done for a guy who's, he just got elected to a board of the company he was with. They don't even know he's leaving, right? So, I mean, so heavy hitters and that people that have money, really good credit, and they understand that a quarter of a point or a half a point is not going to make or break the deal, right? Because if you're buying $1.4 million or $1.5 million EBITDA business, what difference does a quarter?
Yeah, your debt service coverage will go from like 1.7 to like 1.68 or
right,
something.
Exactly. And it just doesn't matter. And here's the biggest key with what I do is the buyers are buying opportunity to buy the business, build it, grow it, and sell it and make it their own, right? They're not keeping it, they're not buying a job, and they're not keep it stable. So the bet is that if the cash flow coverage is 1.45 today, that cash flow coverage is going to be 1.75 in a year from now. And I can tell you that I speak with a lot of my borrowers, and they're crushing it. They're just doing really, really well, which is nice to see, right? I mean, that's why the program is there.
These larger deals, are you doing like a pari passu program with them, or?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
we are. So in fact, before I came this morning, I issued a borrower a term sheet for a $5 million deal with $1.5 million pari passu behind it.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So it's a very large transaction. And my debt service was over 2 times. In the last year, the current projection, all over 2 times.
So the bank's just eating this up at this point. These are great deals.
Yeah. The bank is eating it up.
And you're representing the bank on your shirt.
Yes, I'm trying to anyway.
And
yeah.
what
I
do
love First Bank of the Lake. Yeah, they're great.
It's a great. Well, we've had some.
I know you had Anne Marie on, and she's a phenomenal leader. She's, I was employee number 13 in our SBA division when I joined the bank. In January of 2020, we're now up to 150 people. So we've put on a lot of folks.
So 2021, so it's been 2.5 years.
2.5 years, yeah. And it's been, my favorite saying about the bank is they continue to exceed my expectations.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And so, because, when you go out to make that type of decision to say, I'm ready for my next thing. I've built my reputation. I know who I am. This is what I do. And you have to go make that move. That's a huge move for you at that point to get into bed with another bank. How'd you go about doing that?
So when I was at Radius Bank, Radius Bank was actually owned by a private equity group. So it was it was nice to be working for a group that understood the model,
Right.
wanted to grow the bank, and they had a 5-year window, right? So they were happy to do these kind of deals. I put on a lot of business, frankly, made a lot of money, which was great. And then we had our exit. We sold it to Lending Club.
Oh, right.
It worked out great. And then I was too young to retire at that point. Right. So what's next? And so I got the opportunity to meet with Anne Marie, and she convinced me that this was in her vision what she had in mind. And we've built it really, really well because we're not subjective to a credit box. I think that's what makes us a little bit different than everybody else. We don't have a credit box that we have to adhere to. If it makes sense, the deal works, we can get our arms around it,
Mm-hmm.
and we think that this will be a good deal in our portfolio, we're willing to do it. So,
And that's a lot of other lenders have the exact opposite approach. In fact, I listened to a podcast with the Live Oak guy. What's his name? The guy who started it. I don't know his name.
Chip
Chip,
yeah.
It's like 2016 or something. And he was talking about how they had a grid or something that says the deals are going to either fit or we're going to just move on. And that's sort of the opposite, but they've obviously became really big. But I'm with you. I like the more nimble approach where you can look at a deal, figure out the pros and cons, the weaknesses, how to mitigate them, structure something custom to that deal, and then go. Because that's what people want. They don't want a one size fits approach.
That's right.
So did you consider starting your own shop?
You mean being when you say own shop?
Just going, finding a bank and just starting something from scratch.
Oh, no. Oh, God, no. No, I would never want to do that. Absolutely. That's what we have Anne Marie for. She's phenomenal. It takes a tremendous amount of work to be the team leader and then have everything fall on your shoulders. For me, I get the luxury of getting up in the morning, doing what it is I want to do, doing what it is I love to do,
Yeah.
with no pressures. I mean, it's phenomenal because, I don't have a pressure of, I've got to do a next deal. I've got to do a next deal. I've got to do a next deal, right? So, when you have a goal and you're doing $5 million deals, it's pretty easy to get to that number pretty quickly. So
You're coaching up some of the younger guys coming up.
Yep.
Were you doing anything like that in terms of sales management prior to this?
So I was, and I also had my own business for 13 years, on the corporate consulting side and doing strategic business plan writing.
In between SBA, or was that on?
I had started my SBA career. I was into it for about 5 years, and then I went back to school, got my MBA, and then I decided, no, I don't want to be in the banking business anymore. So I went out and had my own shop for 13 years. So, when you've been on that side of the table and you understand what owners go through when they wake up every morning,
Right.
It's really a neat perspective when you're talking with clients and can shed some light on that, like what they're going to experience. Because a lot of
It
these,
does help.
a lot of these guys that are doing business acquisitions, they're first time buyers,
Right.
right? They don't know what they don't know. So it helps when you can have those conversations and say, I've been there, done that, right? So yeah, but I mean, it's hard to run a shop. I mean, there's just so much work involved in it. And
Well, it's hard enough just managing people, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're coaching some folks
yeah,
up
so
now.
we're, and we've got a couple, younger guys underneath me, and had a great story with one of my BDOs who came out of the brokerage side. So you mentioned you've got a new person that's coming out of the
Right.
recruiting side. So, people jump into this and just think that, okay, I can get into sales. And some people are going to make it. Some people aren't. We've had people in our shop that have jumped to sales, then they went back to credit, right? And then, or they decided they wanted to do this. It really wasn't what they really thought it was. Because everybody just sees when you're successful and they look and they go, oh, I want to do that.
Right.
Right. It's easy to, you want to emulate that, but it's not for everybody. Not everybody's a salesman, right? I mean, that's what we're selling, right? So
yeah. Well, and it's to be to get to your level, BDO, doing 50 plus million in production, like that type of level,
Mhm.
50, 75, whatever. You have to have a lot of discipline, and you really can't, say yes to every deal, or you have to structure deals in certain ways. It's not just get the deal and go present it, right? There's a
Right.
lot that goes in between. And that's what a lot of the younger BDOs or folks that are trying to get to that level don't understand. Like, I'll just, I'm not going to spend my time on a deal that I don't think is going to close, right? And so a lot of folks will waste their time on things like that. But you have a reputation in the marketplace for getting things done. People have to trust you, but you also have to rely on your own team internally.
That's right.
So you've built your reputation over the years, but you're also just one of a whole team of approach for an SBA loan. You have underwriter, closer, associates, whatever. How do you interact with your internal team to make sure they're bought into what you're doing out in the market?
Yeah. So I just yesterday had a call from an attorney that we do a lot of business with. His brother's buying a franchise, and he called me and said, hey, I'd really love for you to handle this. I'm not going to personally handle it, but I'll oversee it. I passed it on to a guy that works with us who's terrific at franchise lending. He's a young guy that we've brought up, we've trained, he's bought into the model, he gets it. He's just really good at what he does. And so we'll pass it on. But for me, what I do personally is I have one-on-ones, with my team members. And then we have a vertical meeting once a month as all hands. And a lot of it is on the one-on-ones. It's training. It's just talking about how to get deals, what you need to do to drive business. And here goes another one of my sayings, right? At the end of the day, when you look in the mirror, what did you do to drive business? And if you look at yourself and you didn't do anything, then that's probably what you got, right? Nothing. So you got to look in the mirror. You got to ask yourself, what did I do? The phone's not going to automatically ring. It just doesn't work that way. The phone works one way. It's outbound, right? And if you're not either pounding the phone, or you're not making emails, or you're not speaking with brokers if they're dealing with brokers, or if you're not out visiting with the brokers, because in the broker community, what I found, Ray, and I don't know if you found the same, is that you could get a deal done for them. And this is no disrespect, because the way that they earn their living is they've got to close deals, right? We know that. But if they call you on another deal and it doesn't fit your box, or you don't like the deal, they're going to somebody else, and now that BDO who gets it done is their new best friend, right? So it's just more or less. It's just the way the industry is. It's as you're younger, when you're more established, maybe like yourself, where hey, I've got a track record with this guy. He knows what I do. He's going to call me with the type of deal because he knows what it is I like. But if you're that BDO that's coming up, you're trying to get there. Right. That's what I'm saying. So I think that if I were going back and I talk with my team and I say to them, if you get a broker, get the broker on your side, but make sure the client is yours. Talk with the client, step back, get the client to buy into the relationship. Nick has always taught me, people buy people. People buy people. And so if you can get those clients to buy into you, and that goes back why I don't compete. If I speak with somebody and 5 or 6 minutes after our conversation is in and they don't think that I'm the guy to get their deal to the table, then they should go somewhere else, frankly. They should.
Now, what if they do go somewhere else, but then they come back to you because the other place couldn't get it done? You take them back?
Yeah, I do. Because it's business, and I realize that. Before I used to, it was funny, you're growing up as a BDO and you'd help a guy get $2 million, and then 6 months down the road, you'd bump into him and he goes, oh, wow, you look familiar. Well, yeah, I'm the guy that cost you $2 million. Remember, I used to get really offended at that, right?
Yeah.
Now I realize it's just business, and I don't get offended at it anymore. So it depends upon the circumstances, to be truthful with you. I've taken back some people and some I haven't. It just depends upon how they went about doing it. I'm very upfront. I'm a very blunt kind of a person, right? And so I'd rather people just tell me that upfront, and a lot of them will say, I'm being transparent. I'm dealing with a couple of other people, and I'm the first one to say it, and I do it all the time. I'm happy to take the back seat. If it doesn't work out, come back to me.
I think that is probably a common mistake I see a lot of people making, is not being able to manage that broker relationship effectively, because you're right. I mean, my process is usually I get a deal from a broker and I size it up and I say, all right, I think there's a path forward, but I need to really wrap my arms around this thing. I'll schedule a call with the broker and the borrower, and I kind of use that as a good place to start transitioning that relationship over. Keep the broker in the back seat, keep them updated the whole way. As long as they feel like you know what you're doing and you're keeping them in the loop on everything, they're going to be fine with it. But the ones that say the underwriter can't talk to the client or send everything through me, and then I'll funnel it through, we won't work like that. And I think BDOs that are trying to make that work just to get the deal flow are probably doing themselves a disservice.
It's interesting, and you make a great point. It's a super great point. And a lot of times you'll see when a deal will go into underwriting, banks will say, well, we don't want our underwriters talking with the broker, right? Like the underwriters are not supposed to speak to the brokers, or the broker is not supposed to be on the call because they don't want to sway how the conversation goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
I never attend an underwriting call with my client. Yeah,
Me either.
Make your own independent decision. You're there to protect the bank, number one. If you think it's not a good deal, then evidently maybe it's not. Maybe I made a mistake, right? But that's where the broker, while you're transitioning and how you put them in the backseat is a terrific way to approach it, because then now you're going to establish that relationship. And I think, as a BDO growing up in the world and trying to get to a place where, hey, you've got, tons of business coming in, your reputation and all that kind of thing, it's difficult. It's the one thing that I would leave as a point is if you're dealing with brokers, own the relationship, get the client to be yours, learn how to deal with them, get granular, ask them the questions so that if you do go to loan committee, you'll be prepared. And it's tough if you go and they start asking questions. I've always found, as I was growing up in the world, it snowballs, but it snowballs against you, right? Because one question leads to another one, and you didn't know the answer to the first one, you're certainly not going to know the answer to the second one. I'm sure you've seen it as well. So, I mean,
I've seen it. So, we work at like what we would call production shops that are built to do SBA loans. And that's where I've been for the last, 7-8 years between the last two shops. I was at both non-bank 7(a) lenders. But before that, I was at a local bank that was very tough. And I started there when I was 23. So what could I have known at that point in life, and I had basically 2 years of doing 504s under my belt. And I started when I was 21. So I started kind of young, but they'd make you wear a suit and a tie, and I'd come in, and I'd be all, but I'm presenting. Was I presenting the deals? Yeah, I would present the deals, and I mean, I didn't even know what I was doing, really. I mean, but I was presenting the deal, but it wasn't just me. Even folks that had been doing this 10, 15 years, the same thing would happen to them in committee, where it'd be every Thursday.
Right. Yeah.
And they would ask a couple questions, and we'd be like, that's a good question. We don't know. And then they would kind of it would get a little weird for a couple minutes, and they'd be like, well, maybe you can find out and come back next week. And that happened to me twice one time. And imagine the customer at this point.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And then there's one they declined after, came back, got some more information, came back, got some more information, decline, bankruptcy 8 years ago, something like that. Kevin Rafferty ended up doing it.
Oh, yeah.
and it was this $2.2 million CRE refi on Hypoluxo, the road I live on, that I pass every single day.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's another sword every time you pass it, right?
Those committee situations are how my hair began getting gray. It was, you're sweating in there.
Yeah.
But ever since then, I haven't done committee in that way. We actually do it, up to $3 million. It's a signature from our chief credit officer, and then over $3 million, which would be all your deals,
right.
Would be like an informal committee through email, right? How do you do it?
So we actually have an ELC. It's every Friday, like you said. And so we go, and our underwriters actually present the deal. And then I'm on the phone to answer any questions. But committee gets the deal a couple of days before. And if they have any questions, they're going to call you and ask you. I wouldn't expect them to, throw me under a bus at loan committee. That wouldn't sit well.
Right.
Yeah, that's not nice. And they get that. They know that. So, fortunately, I'm batting 1,000.
That's what I say. If you have a reputation, it's not only externally, it's also internally.
Yeah. So we talked about this with BDO reputational risk, which is a great segue. I did want to mention it, so I'm glad you brought it up. If you don't mind me just
please
injecting. So, I've had some BDOs work for us. They haven't worked out. It's difficult when you go in and say, hey, this is my pipeline, right? They're maybe getting touted to come to another job, or they're not happy with where they are, and so they want to go to a new shop. BDO reputational risk is real, and I speak about that all the time with our internal players in our internal BDOs, because I say to them, let's say I leave and go somewhere else. It's not going to happen, but let's just say I did, and I was looking for a BDO. Your reputation is going to precede you, right? So if I get a call from somebody that that, hey, we're looking to speak with so-and-so, like if Anne-Marie will call me and say, hey, I'm showing you a resume. This person's looking for a job. What do you think? It's happened a couple of times, and I'll go, what do you want me to say? And she'll go, okay, that's enough. And then that's it, right? So that's it. I don't have to say any more. So the BDO reputational risk. So not only are these up-and-coming BDOs have the reputation at their own bank, but it's an external thing too, right? And it's an internal thing with their own team. How good are they at understanding their deal? How good are they putting the deal together? We have a policy in our bank that you got to play nice in the sandbox. That is one of Anne-Marie's biggest. She talks about it all the time, right? She talks about got to play nice in the sandbox, because these are people that you do business with first and foremost every day.
Right.
Your clients maybe, but people you work with internally. So getting that BDO reputational risk of, I know what I'm doing. I know how to present to ELC. I know how to underwrite my deals. I know how to manage the brokers. I know how to make sure that the package is complete. I've got all my documentation in there. And I see it to this day. Not knowing your deal leads to not having all the proper documentation. Because once you do, then you'll know, like you'll look inside a tax return. Maybe you didn't go to and see that the guy owns another business. So you didn't go get the K-1s, or you didn't go get the other, Schedule Cs, or you didn't go get the other tax returns. And then it goes to the underwriter, and that kills the deal. So there's a lot of time delay. That affects the clients. That affects the broker. That's how you build your reputation. So these junior BDOs or BDOs that want to come up and get to that point, all of that matters, right? That makes sense.
Well, I think the ones that you work with are lucky to have you to show them the way, and hopefully they're trying to absorb it like a sponge, because it takes a very unique type of person to be a good BDO, because you need to be able to develop business. You also need the attention to detail. You have to be able to underwrite and think logically and understand business, and it's a lot of different skill sets. And then you get into closing, and there's a whole another thing. bunch of things you got to figure out. But transparency is number one.
Absolutely.
You got to lay it all on the table, because you're right. The reputation is very real. I've talked to people where they're like, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this BDO workbook. I should be out selling,
I don't agree with that.
Me either.
If you don't know your deal, you don't know what you're selling. I mean, it's just, you're relying on somebody else, right? So
exactly.
I come from the school. Listen, when I got my training, this is way back when, I was one of 2 preferred lenders in the state of Florida at the time. I've been doing this long enough that when Tony Wilkinson wanted to start Nagel, he had come to Miami to have a meeting, and I was in that first meeting. So I've been around before Nagel, just to FYI, right?
All right.
And when I got my training, we would actually go to the SBA district office in Miami, and that's where I would get my training. So I would sit in a classroom with SBA officials, and that's how I got my SBA training, in addition to be formally credit trained, right? So I went through a formal credit training program with a bank when I was making the transition. I started out in the investment side of the world and then moved over to commercial real estate. So I did not commercial real estate, commercial lending, and then got formally trained. So I've had a lot of training.
You've had the credit training, you've had the business ownership,
Yep.
MBA, the business valuation certificate. So you're walking the walk and talking the talk. It
takes a long time though, Ray, right? So you can't do that overnight is what I'm saying. But
there's no shortcuts. That should be maybe the title of this one. There's no shortcuts.
There's no shortcuts to becoming successful. There isn't. It takes time. And, like I said, today you're the best at what it is you do, but tomorrow you'll be even better.
That's the hope.
That's the goal, right?
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for joining. This
has been great. I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you, I guess, when we go up to Orlando, right?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, okay.
Do this again?
Yeah, we'll do this again. Sounds
We'll
perfect.
just play the recording.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, cool.
Okay.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.